second snowfall of the year. Like it or not, I'm gonna have to start dealing with this on a regular basis. And as most of you know, if you follow my channel, I'm pretty much exclusively a steel person. But even I have to admit that Ego has become the brand leader in the space of battery operated tools. And they're getting so good that they're replacing most of their gas counterparts. So I finally took the plunge and gonna see what Ego is all about, particularly with this electric snow shovel. This is a very interesting application because it has the potential to replace a much larger piece of equipment. And one of the reasons I've had to embrace Ego is because steel doesn't offer this particular tool. So the big question in your mind is, why is Ego become the leader in this space? And it's really all about their batteries. They are not a low cost brand. In fact, if you do a tool by tool comparison with steel and some of the other brands, often they're a little bit more expensive. So I wouldn't call them high-end, but they provide a quality tool from everything I've seen, and the largest batteries. When we look at a battery, what we mean by largest is really the amp hour rating. A lot of these put their voltage on there, and voltage is important for recharge time and motor torque and things like that. But really, how much energy in the battery, it all comes down to that amp hour rating. The one that comes with this electric snow shovel is a 4 amp hour battery. But there's pros and cons to just making a larger battery. These things get significantly heavier as we get more amp hours in them. And for tools that we're gonna carry and use, that's more weight we have to carry around. So really, it's a balance. And every brand and tool designer is going through this give and take between trying to make the runtime as much as possible while making it as light as possible, and those things really fight each other. So 4 amp hours seems to be kind of a magic battery size across a bunch of different brands that make it light enough to easily carry and use, but give you decent runtime. So we'll see how this particular battery runs our electric snow shovel. So again, what Ego is very good at is the battery sizes. They offer very large, long runtime batteries, which tend to get kind of heavy, but that's the trade-off, and their charging system. And one of the reasons I was forced to go with Ego here, I wanted to check it out, and know a lot of other people who've had good experiences with the brand. But Steel and a lot of other of the tool brands don't offer this particular tool. So I tried to stick with Steel predominantly to get the same battery format that I can use across multiple tools, but I really couldn't resist Ego any longer. Now, one of the negatives with going with a larger battery, like 4 amp hours, is going to take longer to charge. Well, Ego combats that by giving you a higher end charger. The humming noise is a fan in the charger itself. As you try to put more energy more quickly into a battery, it's going to want to get hot. And so they counteract that by giving you a air-cooled charger. Now, the equivalent, kind of a similar battery and tool from Steel that I use for my electric string trimmer and hedge trimmer is this AK series. That's the home series. But we can see here on this charger, there is no fan. In the battery, there's no fan, so there's no cooling capability. This is a smaller 2 amp hour battery so one of the negatives with air cooling your battery and your charger and making a bigger battery is that they cost a little bit more. So equivalent tools across Ego and Steel, the Ego will cost a little bit more unless you have the same battery size. So a 4 amp hour Steel battery and a 4 amp hour Ego battery, your cost equivalent, the Steel might be a little bit more expensive. But Steel's doing this on purpose to provide a little bit more affordable tool. And one of the benefits of not air cooling your things with a powered fan is that the batteries and chargers are lighter and less costly. So it's really this fundamental trade-off that the designers and engineers between these different companies are really kind of have a little bit different philosophy. Ego is put in the largest battery size possible to give you the most power and runtime. Steel is more about right sizing the battery and making their tools lighter and more efficient. What's better? It's for you to decide. We'll see how this tool actually works in practice. On the Ego, you've got this circular gauge, so to say, with LEDs that light up. When it's full circle, you've got max battery power, and as they tick away, you've got less. The Steel has a battery logo, again, with the same LED system. When they're all lit, you've got max battery power. As they go down, you have less. Functionality-wise, they both give you the same information. The Ego is a little bit more of a futuristic sci-fi look on it, so I kind of like it. So what we have here in our Ego kit is the multi-tool power head. So this is where the battery fits. And then there's this universal lock here for different tools. This particular kit came with the electric snow shovel. That's the first thing I wanted to try out. One unique feature that this has over all other electric snow shovels that I found is it has these vanes that we can move to direct the path of the snow instead of just going straight. We'll see how that's actually worthwhile in practice. But overall, my first impressions, these cast parts on here, a lot of metal, seems pretty high quality at the expense of being a little bit heavier than other ones. So we'll see if that's a difference or not. For myself, it's not a huge concern necessarily. I can wrangle most any tool I've found. But if my wife or other people in the family want to use it, we'll see what their thoughts are and if this thing's too heavy or not. We've got a plastic scraper edge on the bottom, plastic impeller. Most of this housing is plastic, which is actually what I prefer. I don't particularly like the metal scraper. This is my personal preference. It tends to scrape up the concrete, embed a little bit of that steel in the concrete, and then it gets this rusty look. So I try to avoid metal shovels. Now, I'm on the extreme spectrum. Most people scrape their driveways with metal and never even have a second thought about it. I particularly like plastic. It's easier on the pavement. It keeps my concrete nicer for longer. So, just my personal preference there. All right, first impressions. Goes together really good. The mechanism to take on and off different tools from the power head, the multi-tool part of it is neat. I think for summer I'd like to have an edger, so this would be a great platform to get the edging head for it. And it's heavy. I can lift it easily, and I think part of the idea here is I don't have the battery in it. I'm charging the battery, but the battery kind of will offset that weight a little bit and provide a little bit more balance to the heavy snowblower end of it. So we'll see how this thing works. One thing I also like, you can see I've got a nice garage floor I'm working on. Having a snowblower run across your garage floor and scraping it with the metal would kill this. So I love the idea that I can just pick this up and hang it somewhere in the garage, and it never has to touch the garage floor or scrape it. And storage obviously is a lot easier. And I can use this for multiple tools, put that away for storage for the summer. I like it. We'll see if it actually works in practice, or if it's just an expensive toy. This isn't the lightest tool out there, but it's pretty neat. You gotta see this. It's throwing the snow better than I thought. We've got maybe an inch, but it's a real heavy wet snow as we mostly get in the transition times here before we get into heavy winter and it gets real cold. So I gotta say, initial reactions, this thing is awesome. The power head has two settings, a 1 and a 2, basically changes the RPM. 1 throws it pretty good, 2 is very impressive. Yeah, this thing's a winner. Now, we can get up to 3 feet of snow here. This is not gonna be able to swallow the whole 3 feet, obviously. Normally that happens over a significant period of time, maybe a day and a half. So I can easily get out 1 or 2 times and do some intermediate removals. Now, I kept my driveway size relatively small on purpose to make it easier on myself to clear snow in winter, because that is a big part of living here. So I can get away with just this. I don't need a full-size snowblower. This thing is going to be perfect for me. And again, it's very easy on the pavement and the driveway. You start plowing things like this, you really start chipping up and damaging your driveway, especially if you go with a truck plow and have somebody do it for you. So this is a good compromise. Make life easier on yourself, but very gentle on your driveway also. Here I decided to test out the throwing distance of this machine. So I took a long path. And ideally, your snow machine is going to throw the snow off of the driveway. If it starts throwing it onto the driveway in front of it, as it gets closer to the yard, the depth just builds up and makes the machine work harder until it can't handle it anymore. At the very least, makes its life more difficult. Where you can see at the beginning of that path, it was throwing it off the driveway and performing very well. Next, I split this section in the middle to test the functionality of those turning vanes to see if I could turn it enough to where it shoots off the driveway. So you can see here, I'm making that adjustment, trying to cast it off to the right, and it does do a decent job of turning it, not quite enough to get it all the way off the driveway in this scenario. But this allows you to maximize your time instead of having to walk back completely. You can just turn around and go the other way and really maximize your steps. You can see now, if I turn the machine plus have those turning vanes, you can get it to work. So that's one nice thing. You don't have to go completely straight with this machine. You can kind of manipulate the angle on your own in addition to those turning vanes. You can see then I can get it to cast the snow off to the side and off the driveway. So likely this is what I'm going to do. You can see just time-wise, it goes a bit quicker on each pass that you're removing snow. Okay, initial impressions, very good. I was able to easily clear my 2.5 car driveway. The battery is low, but I was able to finish. I only charged it up to 3/4. And I don't know if it was a full 3/4 or a light 3/4.
I took it off the charger before it was done. Just didn't want to wait any longer, so I'll put it back. So when I get a heavy snowstorm, this was pretty heavy wet snow. Probably a good idea to have a second battery so I don't have to stop completely. I can just grab it off the charger, but that fan cooled charger and the size of it is able to charge this fast enough where I think I could hot swap 2 batteries relatively routinely if I had to, if we're getting a monster snowstorm or something. But 99% of the time that will be a non-issue. It is a little bit heavy. My wrist is a little bit sore to get the angle correct on the power head to make sure it's keep grabbing snow instead of, if I let it down too low, it just kind of builds up snow and the auger's not grabbing it. So I got to keep it up a little bit. The turning vanes actually do make a pretty big difference. I was a little skeptical that they do anything, but they do a good job of directing the snow. And if that's important to you, that's one reason to get this. Other brands do not offer that. And it does work pretty good. Plus, you can use the turning vanes in addition to kind of turning the entire unit to help direct snow, so you don't have to just go straight in front of you. So you can do longer swaths of it. But power-wise, didn't bog down once on me. Again, relatively small amount of snow for us, but it was heavy and wet. But overall, this thing does get my full recommendation. We'll see how it holds up over time. I'll do updates if I have any issues with it, but so far this thing is a winner. This 4 amp hour battery with the charger that comes with this kit, which is sort of their standard charger, charges to full in 55 minutes. There is a rapid charger available that is an additional cost, obviously, and that will get the charge time down to 30 minutes. Charge power and how much time it takes to charge a battery all comes down to the charger itself and how much electrical energy the charger can convert from alternating current that we have in our distribution and our household electricity to direct current to deliver to the battery. All batteries are direct current, so the electronics required get more expensive and larger as we try to convert more energy from alternating current to direct current to supply to the battery. There you have it. I found my snow tool for this winter. Maybe it'll change next winter, but so far, this thing fits my needs perfectly. There's a little bit of wear on this edge here, so that's one of the concerns with having a plastic scraper. It scraped the driveway, as you saw, pretty clean, as clean as I want it. And there's some wear on this. The good news is this is a replaceable part. There's 4 screws down in the bottom here that attach this on, so you can replace that. I'm sure this will probably last the season, but that's something I might look for as a wear part for the Eagle. That is one of the other major advantages on this Eagle brand versus steel. These are available at big box stores, so that their hours tend to be more generous than the steel dealers. Normally that's Ace Hardware stores or steel specific dealers. And there's less of them, so they're just less convenient to go buy parts or equipment at. Plus they have less sales. So this thing was $50 off. It's quite rare to get a sale like that on steel equipment. They do run sales occasionally, but it's like 10% off, something like that. And normally it's just at the beginning of whatever season you're doing. So I actually do prefer big box stores. I don't have to talk to anybody. I can run in, run out quick, check online what their inventory is at Lowe's, Fleet Farm. It's just an easier experience. Another thing I appreciate, the footprint of this thing in the garage is virtually nothing. Thanks for watching. Adios.